Good evening and welcome. Thank you all for joining us for this session, the How Do We Learn session. We hope it's going to be a very productive 90 minutes alongside our speakers. Before we start, and I let them make an introduction about themselves and the companies or the organizations they represent. I just want to make a quick overview about how we're gonna manage this session. My name is Vlad Icleanu. I'll be the moderator for this evening. I'll be asking the questions and coordinating the conversation. We will have a set of topics and a set of questions. We will allocate a few minutes on each. I'm expecting 4 to 6 minutes per question. We'll give the chance to our speakers to respond, but also to make amendments if they didn't get a chance to respond or they just want to bring an idea in. And for this to be interactive, we will reserve the final 15 minutes for you, the public, the people that are watching, to put questions on the chat, and we'll take them in the final 15 minutes, few of them, and then we'll draw some conclusions. And yeah, pretty much this is it. Okay. So again, thank you very much for the speakers for joining me. And thank you very much, Cluj Innovation Days, for giving us the chance to have this conversation. I will now invite the speakers to present themselves, say a few words about themselves, and we'll start with Mr. Doru Supeala. Doru, if you can please make a little introduction.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Doru Supeala. I'm the managing partner of the School for Responsible People. This is an NGO. Started last year with the purpose of developing a new model of leadership for the people in our organizations. We do have started with some trainings and courses related to employer branding, performance management, leadership. We had some camps as well, and we do have a project, our heart project. It's related to students. We organized the SPOR junior camp. This is 1 week with 12 young people. We kidnap them from Cluj. We take them out of the city, and we transform them in a responsible person for every of them. And the results are great for now. We do this since 5 years ago. And we do have great people who already follow this program. At the same time, I'm the head of marketing for a small but very strong company in IT in Cluj called Airport Labs. We have our own products developed for the airlines industry, mainly for airports. We sell these solutions as a software as a service.
Okay, it sounds very interesting, Doru. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm sure our participants will be very interested to find out more about your projects and what you're developing, and also your input in the conversation. Let us now move to Mr. George Lupascu for his introduction. George, if you could please tell us a few words about yourself and the company.
Thank you, Vlad. So I'm George Lupascu Pruna. I'm working under the brand reliableculture.com. I have more than 15 years of experience in corporate and leadership psychology. For the past 5 years, I'm actually licensed in this field of organizational development and intercultural management. Mostly I work on group behaviors, on understanding the organizational cultures in various departments, in various companies, in, of course, various industries. Among my services, I have this transitioning to work from home. So whenever the company needs to move their people to working from home, it doesn't really happen smoothly. And by understanding the starting point and where they want to reach, I can help with that. I'm also doing organizational transformations projects, preparing the organization for expansion, for the digital transformation. So mostly what is related to group behavior. And then the second part of my, let's say, work or my field is intercultural management, and I do workshops for various audiences around the world on the particular culture that they need to understand. I'm a bachelor from the Technical University of Cluj-Napoca, so I have a bachelor in automation, and apparently that really helped in keeping these things of culture, organizational culture, cultural differences very tangible. So sometimes, yeah, life gets you in a point, in an unexpected point, but yeah, go with it.
Okay, that sounds very interesting, George. Thank you very much. I'm just wondering, do you work with small and medium enterprises or with big companies? Is it something in-house of the big companies that you do?
Mostly my services are for the corporations, but any medium to large company can use this. Of course, every once in a while I do coaching for, let's say, individuals for their negotiations across cultures. But mostly we are talking about culture when we have at least 10 people. So organizational culture makes sense for a rather average, medium, and large company.
So from a certain point above, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Thank
for
you.
the startups, not really.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, George. We welcome Mr. Sebastian Vaduva among us. I'm glad that
good to be with you,
here, Sebastian. We know that the technical issues can be something. It's just like at a conference when you're missing the room and then you have to check the map and see where you go.
Exactly.
Yes, Sebastian, I will give you the chance now to introduce yourself.
Thank you.
About yourself and about the company or the organization you represent, okay?
Right. Thank you. And I apologize. They say that it's always the shoemaker's kids that walk barefooted. So here we are at a technical conference and we have technical issues. So my background is from the business world. I have a PhD and an MBA in business. But over the last 20 years or so, I have migrated towards IT. Initially, my background was in doing corporate training. And I still do corporate training for large IT companies in Romania, primarily helping them with their management programs. So an MBA customized to the various IT players, and I started doing that back as far as 2005. As things progressed, along with my good friend Razvan, we had a few startups, most notably the Informal School of IT. I was kind of like the cuckoo, playing the cuckoo, and he was the working man along with Sorin and Mihai and all the other guys. And we have done a number of startups, either in education or in technology. True to form, most of them failed, so we're very proud of that. But the Informal School of IT did not fail, and a few other ones did not fail. And we're very excited about the IT ecosystem of Romania and what's happening in both of these fields, both in the services, because I believe that services have a future, then at the same time in the startups. So we're excited to see companies like Typing DNA and a few other ones that are really becoming global brands in digital technology. So thank you so much for putting this event together. I look forward to people's questions and the discussions we'll have about education, because that's the underlying platform of trying to have a vibrant IT community.
Okay, thank you very much, Sebastian. We're so glad to have you all here. I will now ask Razvan Voica also to introduce and present himself and Școala Informală de IT.
Sebastian always raises the bar so high when it comes to speaking English fluently. Okay, my name is Razvan Voica and I do represent the Informal School of IT, which is Școala Informală de IT. And I've been working on this project since 2013 when Sebastian here, who I still consider the founding father and the visionary behind this concept, was calling me every day and telling me, okay, we need to do something. We lack resources in IT. We need fresh blood. Let's start building something. And I think it was one of the most inspiring projects I've ever worked for, because yes, fast forward 2020, we have coverage and logistic presence in 8 cities in Romania, and we are planning to expand abroad. Over 120 mentors, who are people working currently for IT companies, for local IT companies, and after work teaching within our classes. And I'm happy to say that we hope that this year will be over with around 2,000 students. Just to give you a little bit of context, we've mainly did in this year's professional reconversion towards IT. So we addressed all these educational tech programs towards people who are in various industries and want to make a step towards being more technical and approach an IT specific job. In the same time, of course, we addressed it to people who by any chance got to do in their professional life anything else than their initial education. So people who, for example, followed high school on IT topics, but afterwards did anything else than this. And yeah, basically, we are talking here about educational programs, which are a little bit more than a training. It's basically something that targets to create a mindset in the first place and to put you on track with everything that the IT market requires for you to achieve a job afterwards. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for the introduction, Razvan. Before moving forward, I would say that there are now 40 people that are live in the session and they are watching us. And I do want to ask you, as we asked a little bit before, please write a little bit about yourselves in chat if you feel comfortable. What do you work? If you're students, if you're employers, we just want to understand a little, the public that we have here with us today. In order to move and to understand how we can move forward better for you. We'll also, in the end, for those of us who didn't hear my introduction, in the end, in the last 15 minutes, we'll have a session dedicated to your questions. So please, along the session, if one question pops into your mind, just write it on the chat and we'll pick it up in that time slot. Okay, let's dive straight into the subject. The first one that I want to address now is, formal, non-formal, and informal education, and how they say that the ones that are at the back will be at the front. So my first question will be directed to Razvan. I will let him answer, and 4 or 5 minutes, and then if other speakers in the panel want to join in and fill in the blanks or throw in ideas, they would be welcome. Okay, so Razvan, the question is, how important do you feel is complementary education, like non-formal and informal, to the formal one, in order to remain relevant in the workforce?
Okay, I will split my answer into 2 parts. So for the first part, I believe that the addressability of non-formal education tends to go towards people who are already, let's say, have a beginning of their career. And from our numbers inside, we've noticed consistent 29 years average age for the people who are coming to us. So it's definitely, we are not targeting the people who are 18 years old and just starting university. I used to call these guys people at their 3rd decision, because the first decision that you take is usually, where do I go and which high school do I follow? And that's very biased. And of course, it's the parents mostly who influence that decision a lot. The second decision is, which university do I sign up for? And that's biased as well, because it's usually the friends and the social context beginning to work and to give you some ideas, and this will work and that will work. But then you end up in a moment, and there are many people in our society and around us that end up in a moment asking for themselves, finally, what do I want to do? And if you get to think about the 29 years average age in these people, it means that they went through the entire educational process. They started the job, they began their career, they are used to working in a company, in, I don't know, teams, on the projects, on, so they have all this discipline. but they purely want for themselves to do something else. So I believe that for informal education, this would be a sweet spot. So it depends on when you do it. But the second part of my answer would target the fact that if we are to look at IT, for example, it requires for you to stay updated always. You cannot miss out, not even months, because your knowledge is going to definitely get deprecating, and you need to stay on top of things. So as a refresher for people who are already in the IT industry, this can be a good model to approach. And I can say that we explored a lot in these 7 years of activity and tried so many various models just to achieve that level of interactivity and engagement that we wanted within our groups. And it works. If you have the right model, and if you have this, I would just mention here the fact that we are working almost exclusively with practitioners, with people that are working basically in this industry and are, as I told you before, they are teaching tech after work in the evening. This kind of changes a bit what you learn in the first place. And then little things like, all our courses, for example, are being held after work, after the working hours. That's important as well, because usually our students, when they come, they do have a job, and they cannot afford to just drop the job, start learning, get a job in IT. It's not working this way for people. So all in all, I would say it's complementary, definitely complementary, and it's a matter of not how, but when you do it.
Okay, thank you very much, Razvan. If any of the other speakers want to pitch in to share us their thoughts a little, Sebastian.
If I may, I think it's important for people to notice the major transformations that education in itself has, because historically for the last 300 years, education has been really about taking people from the farms and putting them into the factories. That was really the essence of education. The other thing about traditional education used to be very front-ended. You were expected to be done with your education by the time you were 25, and then up until 65, you basically lived off the education of your early years, and that was that. However, the world is changing, and I recommend that people who are following us to follow the World Economic Forum, because they do a lot of forecasts regarding of the changing nature of work, so on and so forth. So now what we're talking about is a lifelong learning, where an individual, although they still need that early education, they need to get upgrades about once every 10 years. So it's really an issue of computer upgrades. That's the way I present it to my students. Once every 10 years, you need to come back for a patch. Just because information is changing, just because you need a lot of upgrades. That's education in general. When we talk about technical education in particular, that's a different ballgame, because first of all, a lot of it has to do with the professors. Do you have the adequate professors? And I have a saying, because I operate in both the formal sphere and the informal sphere. If you have a professor who's really good for formal education, he's not very good for the students. If he or she is very good for the students, he's not very good for the accreditors. So there's an inverse proportion between the nature of the professor, and it has to do with publication, it has to do grants, with all those other things. So those would be probably the 2 or 3 comments I would make to complement what Razvan said, which was very good.
Okay, thank you, Sebastian. I know Georgia had a hand.
Yep. I like the fact that you said, Sebastian, that people need to get into that habit that every 10 years they need an upgrade.
Sure.
But from my experience, we are sort of shifting towards being able to learn all the time. And now the technology is changing. The organizations are changing. The digitalization comes in. So people really need to adapt. And throughout my transformation projects, the most that are suffering are the ones that are stuck in that mentality that, look, things have to be like that. They worked. And yes, they worked in the past, but not anymore.
Right.
And for the students, or the, let's say, how Razvan was mentioning, people at their third decision, what I would recommend is to get in touch with coaches or with professionals that went already through several decades of various works, and try to understand yourself. Because you might reach a level in 10 years in which you will be lost and you will feel that, yeah, I've done this already, but I don't like it. So what do I do? And guess what? At that point, time is less. So you have to spend your extra time after you are drained out of the energy of doing 8 hours or 10 hours something at work that you don't like, to find out what you actually like or what are your skills. So my recommendation would be to start early on and get in touch with somebody that knows how to identify in you what you are good at, what you like, and set up a sort of a path like that.
I very much agree with George. Thank you for pitching in. Time is a very important resource to move forward in life. And I see Doru is about to say something now. And
I would like to add some minor aspects. So we do face a new generation, and this generation has different characteristics compared to our generation. And this Z generation is totally different. They are very interested in exploring and living experiences, not precisely having a job or a long-term contract. And they are very curious. And I would say that along their lives, they will probably change 5 to 10 professions, different professions. This is a new trend, and we cannot ignore it. I would say that I'm not a millennial, I'm not a Z generation, but I did had 4 different professions till now, and probably I will change I will try another profession till my retirement. So we all face this phenomena, and should be aware that this will change. And it would be important for us not to discuss not only what do we learn, but what do we learn, because there are many things that we have on the table. We can speak about skills, tools, and practical things that will help you within the current profession you have. But at the same time, there are mindsets, attitudes, behaviors, communication styles, and many other things that can help you have a different role within an organization. When we speak about team leaders, my managers, these involve many other skills compared to those technical aspects of the information we need to acquire.
Listening to Doru, just some conclusion on my mind. When you said the what we learn, it's very important. If we take a step back and look at the learning process, it's usually a complex process, which has many steps. And one of the biggest challenges throughout these years was how to create a system that's robust enough to be able to change it always, and to be able to bring everything that's relevant, especially in IT industry, where technologies are, what was relevant last year is not relevant this year anymore. And I think having this ability to, just look at the market, look at the needs, and implement them instantly, that's a very high skill to have if you are looking towards the educators and not necessarily to the educated ones. It's a very interesting point of view to have in consideration, even if you are talking about your company learning and development department, or you are talking about a training company or an informal school or university or anything from this area.
Yeah, and I would add something more.
But the last one, we also need to move forward to other questions.
We are all the product of the traditional system. Everyone here probably has followed the traditional steps within school, high school, university, and some of us combine these two. Sebastian has mentioned this, so we do have strong activity in this informal area, but we cover at the same time some traditional programs like MBAs or PhDs or new masters or new licenses, new bachelors.
Yep.
But at the same time, after those two major systems, I would add the self-learning phenomena, and we can see that there are many people, self-made professionals. They have this curiosity, and they already have all this information and tools at their hand on internet, and they are sometimes, many of them are surprising, are very good at what they do, and this could be a third sector in this area of learning that cannot be structured, managed, or I don't know, controlled by anybody.
Okay.
And I believe that this is a trend that will develop within the next years.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you very much for all your inputs, gentlemen. I already feel that like we've touched so many subjects and so many points here. To move forward to my next question, and this would be a question for Doru, because I know he works a lot with students. And my question is here, in the education, traditionally, universities occupy a high rank and have a monopoly on the formal side of education. So my question is, how important, and if we can, or if you have experienced, building partnerships in education with universities to go and complement their programs and their processes in school or even outside. But how important are partnerships with universities in order to evolve the educational process? Because, you know, as you all agreed, we do need updates. We do need constant updates, and if my phone gets one every other month, certainly employers will need that during a lifetime.
Okay, I would say that within the last 5 years, I have been invited every year for 3 or 4 or 5 courses to have this have these meetings with the students in the formal system. I do love to visit the students in the economics faculty at Babes-Bolyai. My friends and ex-professors from the marketing department used to invite many of the graduates, which are successful professionals at this moment. And these practical discussions, practical seminars for the students are very valuable. I have discovered this, and I'm very happy to see that this phenomena is growing. But at the same time, I do see many opportunities here which are not yet used and developed, and I do know that there are some initiatives. We have had some invitations from another university, from Mureș, who had as tutors at our school, Școala pentru Oameni Responsabili, the School for Responsible People. We were invited to have to support or to develop some programs which are post-university programs for active professionals. This is an area which is very uncovered at this moment, and I do know that universities can get good points in the international evaluation by having these kind of programs, and I do see that this is an opportunity for the next years. I strongly believe that the experience we can bring from the real economy, from the real business, together with our solid academic background, because all of us in our school we are following PhDs, or we have graduated from MBAs. This can bring a strong value for the students. By students mentioning here people at their 30s or even 40s with management positions that can take this opportunity to see practical things from practical guys.
Okay, thank you very much, Doru. If any of the speakers want to pitch in their ideas here or want to make comments?
If I can jump in, whenever you talk about formal education, and again, there isn't a bigger student of formal education than myself, and I'm talking here the accredited government education, there are several issues there. The very first issue is the professors, and unfortunately, a lot of the professors, especially in Romania, they're expected to work for very little money. So average salary of a Romanian professor is about $300 per month versus about $3,000 in Germany or other parts. Because I am in the formal education environment, everybody in Romania dreams of building the next Harvard. And normally what I tell people is like, look, well, you need to know why Harvard is Harvard. They have an endowment of about $150 billion. That's billion with a B, and they pay their professors about $500,000 per year. That's the average. That's why Harvard is Harvard. Okay, so again, please keep in mind that most of the professors, at least in Romania, because they're expected to be government employees, kind of like charity workers. Okay, they're not very well paid. Most of them have to have a second job. Okay, or some of them unfortunately engage in corrupt practices like mentorship and meditatie and things like that. So again, it's very easy to criticize what they're doing or what they're not doing. The call really is for us to complement it, and the things that Doru does, and I think all of our speakers and many of the people who are following us, they do go in and they help out free of charge, which is wonderful. And I really believe that that's one of the solutions to help things along. Keep in mind that the professors, they're not well paid, they work very hard, plus a lot of their work is absolutely mindless bureaucracy, where they just have to fill out papers and reports and things like that, which is very, very disheartening for somebody who wants to teach, who's a charismatic person, who wants to mold people's characters, and then they have to do reports for the Minister of Education for whatever reason. So the things that Doru mentioned, the complementary, the fact that you're going in and you're holding a seminar for a professor, you're taking the students out, the fact that you have an opportunity to do a research project with a formal university professor or high school professor and say, look, let me tell you what the upgrades are in this particular technology, in database, or in whatever it is. I think that is huge. That is really one of the ways to improve the system. So I never miss an opportunity to call on people to stop throwing rocks at the formal educational system, because that's very easy to do, and actually start picking up some goodies and take some bread to them and some beneficial things so they can do their jobs better.
I do have some mentions here. I have many friends, very young, and
I think Doru is interrupting a little. So,
sorry, do you hear me?
Yeah.
One more time, Doru.
I think the internet is a little unstable there.
The traditional Zoom talk.
Yeah.
So I would add that there are many young and very ambitious and very professional professors. At the same time, we don't have to forget that there are others who take advantage of the system and use to deliver the same old materials, which are 20 or 30 years old, as information, and they don't have any real value for as a professionals, current students. And at the same time, we don't have to forget that the and very hard to change. We do have these arachis, and we have seen a few days ago that one of the persons in the arachi no bachelor diploma with a fake bachelor. We can understand that this bureaucracy and this stone-like system, it's very hard to change. And this is one of the major challenges for the students and one of their major problems. They usually complain about the actuality of the information they get from the university. It's too old. Sometimes it's not useful anymore. Sometimes it's not practical. And this is one of their main challenges, and this is one of the major reasons students quit universities and abandon their studies or suddenly change their
Okay, Doru, you just got interrupted a little in the end.
Sorry, this is the reason students abandon their studies, or sometimes they totally change the area of interest, and they go from I don't know, from architecture to medicine, and from medicine to constructions.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's why I believe that the partnership between the, let's say, private sector and the public sector is good, because whenever I get the chance to deliver a session for the students, I sort of give them a glimpse into reality and shift the responsibility from the shoulders of the professors to their shoulders. It is in most of the cultures, especially in the Eastern European cultures, that the teacher or the professor is responsible for your education. And it's very pleasant and comfortable while you are in university. But as soon as you are out, depending on the leader that you get, or depending on the organizational culture in which you get in, you feel a particular dissonance. So it might be very harsh, and then you will feel completely on your own, or it might be that you get a mentor that can, let's say, for the next 5 years, still keep that tradition of growing you. But nevertheless, I like to take the opportunities to put that glimpse of reality to the students and to tell them, like, look, you might be on your own. And it's good to take advantage now in university. You still have time. You can still figure out yourself. You can still understand why you are learning what you are learning. And you can connect with reality and understand if it is actual, so that you can push the professors and drive a change. And of course, in hierarchical societies, it's not that easy to do a change bottom up. But we shouldn't give up on that. So there is time, and we should still put the pressure there, so that, let's say, the new generation pushes the change. If we don't have access to the higher levels, anything can be done.
That's very great. Thank you very much, George. I'm thinking we all acknowledge that education is no longer about retaining and reproducing information, because now we have a lot of computers that can do that, but more about the skills, abilities, and talents that you can develop. So my next question, and I would like here to start with George. My next question would be, what are a few abilities and skills, talents that are relevant in today's markets, society, and economic environment? And how do we get them? Where do we get them? Do we get them from informal education, formal education? How do you feel this is shifting?
And I will not talk about the technical ones. I am, from the experience of the past 6 months, I would tell you that the most important skill right now is politics. And what do I mean by that? If you get into a good organizational culture, into a good organizational environment, all you're left with is politics, because otherwise this work from home transition into working always at home. So from 8 in the morning when you wake up and all the way to 12 in the evening, because there is no time to deliver everything. And then if the environment is as such, if you don't have a good boundary, and a good one means that you know how to close it to some of the requests and you know how to open it to other requests, you end up overburdened. And unfortunately, quite a good number of organizations are still in transition from what happened in March when the crisis kicked in. And we have a good number of months already. So after 6 months, you are not in transition anymore. It's a new way of working. And if you don't align that, if you don't take care of your people, you soon will overburn them. And then when the transition, when the crisis, let's say it's gone, you end up with no support. And then whoever managed to use this time to actually take care of their people will collect all the talents. You know, so from a soft skills point of view, I would say that the most important skill now is to have a healthy boundary, to know how to protect your time, to understand what organizational culture is, to understand that you are not the responsible for the organization. It is sort of counterintuitive because the direction is that we are all responsible, and that's fine if the environment is healthy. But if the environment is not healthy and there were no measures to protect your resources, be politics. Have a good, healthy boundary.
Okay, thank you very much, George, for this perspective. If any other speaker wants to pitch in, Sebastian.
I normally go with the World Economic Forum, and there's the 3 C's, which I think are very important. First C is creativity. I think that the skill that is needed, and that in itself packs a lot, you know, from proactivity, being willing to fail, not worrying about being embarrassed. I think all those things are components of creativity, and it is absolutely vital. The second C is communication, having the ability to influence others, to receive, to talk efficiently, to collaborate efficiently, to communicate. And that's the third C, it's collaboration, the ability to work with people from various groups, from various cultures. And increasingly, as Georgia said, I think the fact that we are collaborating with people online, in a sense, we're all sitting at home in front of a computer screen. The challenge of collaboration is even greater because before, what you used to do is put people in a room, lock the room, and say, okay, until you come up with a solution or until you guys get along, you're not coming out. But now it's very easy for people to just log out, or even as they're sitting there, you know, they're checking their Facebook accounts or Instagrams or things like that. So I think that the collaboration piece has a huge component of engagement. How do you engage people's hearts, minds, brains, their everything? And that's a challenge, I believe, for the organizations, but increasingly it's a challenge for the person themselves. One of the books that influenced my life greatly is Dan Ariely's The Honest Truth About Dishonesty. Why do we lie to everybody, especially ourselves? And I think that in this environment, there's a huge tendency for us to deceive ourselves. And I see that in young people, I see that in old people. Because as I look in the mirror, I think I'm okay. I think I know all there is to know. I think I'm working as efficiently as there is. I think I'm a good colleague, so on and so forth. But oftentimes when somebody comes from outside and evaluates me, they say, boy, you are not what you're supposed to do. You're not a good colleague. You're not a productive member of the team. You do not contribute anything for the client or for the project. So I want to add a fourth C, if I may. This is my own addition, and that's character. I think that increasingly character is becoming very, very crucial in the world of work, in the world of education. Yes, we want creative people. We want people who know how to communicate and collaborate. But if they lack character, they have so many avenues to be dishonest, to deceive their colleagues, to lie, so on and so forth. So my fourth one, and obviously my favorite, is the character of people doing what they're supposed to do when nobody's watching, when nobody's holding a gun to their head. I think that's increasingly important in the new environment, as it always was. It's not just now, but now it's even more so.
I would challenge a little, because I've seen people that you would evaluate as a top-notch character, but because they stayed too long in a dysfunctional environment, they managed to learn by the end of it on how to deceive, on how to just take care of themselves.
Yeah, that's very true. The environment influences them. Yeah, I agree with you, Georgia. Yeah. Sure.
So it is sort of a debate if we can change the environment or how much the environment can change us in the end.
I think it's both ways.
It's easier to change the environment. It's much easier, especially at the organizational culture level. On the societal level, of course, it's more complex.
Thank you for the answers, and I'm glad.
I would like to build on the 4 C's of Sebastian.
We'll have a 5 one.
Yeah, there are 4, but we can add many more. Let's think about our traditional learning system and our educational system. We learn mathematics, languages, we learn geography, biology, many other things. We don't learn creativity.
Right.
We don't learn collaboration. Our traditional learning system is a competition, starting from the first year, from the first degree.
Absolutely.
Kids come home and parents put a pressure on them. Why do you have just a B, and it's why the other guy has a FB or an A, or I don't know. And this is not a trend favorable to collaboration. We don't teach them communication at all. Learning, memorizing information about Caragiale and other huge Romanian writers, it's not communication. We don't teach them how to communicate, and they don't know after 12 or even 15 years of school, they don't know how to listen, because in communication, the first step is to listen. And they don't learn character. The models they get are not always the best models they should follow. And I would say that this continues in the university, unfortunately, and it's a tragedy because we see the same traditional system in companies. We don't have programs to teach imagination, because creativity is knowledge multiplied with imagination. You need to have information and use this information in a creative, in a new manner, to combine all this data in a new concept in order to be creative and to generate innovation. We don't educate imagination. We don't educate empathy. We don't educate critical thinking, systems thinking. There are many things that are missing in our traditional system and in the learning programs within the companies. And because we are here, we probably know that when this pandemic started, the first budgets that were cut by our very smart leaders in the companies were the learning budgets, frozen or even cut. This is the reality. And we face this situation. People in the companies live a new life, a new professional life, very uncertain, very new, and they don't know what to do with their tomorrow. And they don't feel that they are prepared. Yeah.
So when you say we, it's we all over the world. Because this
it's not just Romania.
It's not just.
By the way, I greet you all from Texas. I'm in America now. It's 8 o'clock for me. So we have the same situation here in America. Absolutely, it's not just Romania. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you for all.
If everybody does it, then.
But I don't think this is an excuse,
because there is an opportunity.
You're right, Doru.
Yeah, this is not an excuse, and. Yeah, this is a real opportunity for companies who want to recruit.
Doru froze again, right?
Froze again, yeah.
There is a nice question from Sorin in the chat box, and I would mention just about Richard Branson in Virgin. He said at some point that they are not checking for their students' papers anymore. They are doing their evaluations on their own. And that's not about Romania, so it was in probably in Australia or in the UK. And that to the problem that, or the issue that students don't want to finish the education anymore. You have to go further and see, okay, does it make sense? Is it because of bureaucracy? Is it because of a safety net? Why do you want that? Why do they not want it? And
Okay.
of course, in some cases you will go for that, in some you will go for the other.
Thank you.
I begin to notice lately a sensibility of people to the timeline that you expose them to for learning. And we had some experiments internally and tried to extend the timeline of certain programs. And guess what? They became quickly less attractive for people. So even 1 month of adding to a educational program, because I don't know, that technology was just too complex, was influencing directly the people's decision to sign up or not for that specific program. So people right now are pretty bombarded with all this information that they find around them. They think everything is accessible and they want the shortest way from A to B.
Yeah.
It's something to consider. And I was looking as well at Sorin's question in the chat.
I just want to say, thank you for Sorin for the question, and I encourage people watching us asking questions on chat. We will pick them up in the last 15 to 20 minutes of this conversation. I just want to tap in because George spoke about this, and also Sebastian spoke about this. It's very obvious that this has been a very unusual year. Hence, we're all here. We're having this conversation in the virtual environment, and we all know what are the challenges that the coronavirus has brought up to us. But I also want us to, and this is a question for the whole panel. I will start with Sebastian, but for the whole panel, I also want us to think about the opportunities that we have in education and in professional world now because of the environment created by coronavirus. So what are our opportunities? What should we chase now? And Sebastian, if you would please start.
Absolutely. Although everybody's scared of this environment, I see it full of opportunities. And again, I see it full of opportunities primarily because of historical reasons. Every time there was a crisis, there was a minority few who made it into a good opportunity moving forward. Unfortunately, the majority kind of stayed behind. So when I look at education used to be constrained by a couple of major things. One was geography. Back before 1989, if you wanted to be educated, you had to go to Cluj, to Timișoara, to Bucharest. You had to go to Sorbonne or London. There was a physical location. And in that physical location, you had a library, you had a professor. And that's really the two ways that you learned. You walked into a library, you read the books, or you sat into a professor's lecture and you listened to what he or she told you. The beautiful thing about the new environment is that you are no longer constrained by geography, and you are no longer constrained by a single individual who can teach you whatever it is. Okay, so the reason I see this as full of opportunities is because, in a sense, you can access the whole world. You have information virtually free of charge, or if you pay a little bit, the information is very, very good. Okay, and you have access to people virtually from anywhere in the world. Okay, so I can tap somebody on the shoulder from Australia or from America or from Germany, and I can ask that person, hey, would you mentor me? Would you teach me what it is that you know? So it is so much easier for me to learn today than it was 20 or 30 years ago. The negative, the caveat to all of it is that since it's so easy, few people actually do it. So it's much easier to look at some silly little funny video on TikTok than to sit through an entire lecture on TED Talk. So it goes back to what my colleagues were saying about personal responsibility. In the old days, if my parents sent me to school and locked me into one of those big universities, dressed me up in a uniform, I knew that I had to be there for the next 4 years, and I had to be shaped into an educated individual. Now I don't have a uniform on. I'm not going to a certain class. I'm not going to a certain geographical location. So the challenge, although I have access to all this information, is how do I motivate myself personally to take advantage of all the opportunities that I have. So the question is not, do I have the opportunities? I think you have tremendous amount of opportunities. I see companies in Romania and some of my colleagues who are experimenting with the gig economy and having subcontractors from all over the world. You know, they're tapping into the Asian programmers and that kind of stuff. So the opportunities are there. The question is really a question of motivation. How do I motivate myself not to waste time on Facebook and the other social media and actually do constructive, productive efforts? And here I think that it's very important to have a mentor, somebody that not only answers your question, but really holds you accountable. So in my opinion, 21st century education is more about accountability. And I tell students this up front when I start with them. My job is to rescue you from yourself. You are your own worst enemy. And I have a saying, când prinzi un student, bate-l bine și dacă nu știi de ce, că știe el. And again, I've never been anybody and I love all my students, but there is this natural tendency for us to engage in destructive behavior when we have all this opportunity to do constructive behavior. So it's really an issue of motivating. It's an issue of holding them accountable, of being a cheerleader and say, come on, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. Learn the good stuff, write the good papers, watch the good videos. That's going to help you further your career and your education.
Okay, thank you very much, Sebastian. Anyone else from the speakers want to pitch in? And
opportunities. Sorry, you go ahead.
Let's hear George first, and then we'll come back to Razvan. Okay, it's good like this. Okay.
Thank you. So I've also seen that since the lockdown, the world sort of opened up, and the physical barriers were gone. Suddenly, clients that I was visiting like every 3 months were available. And the intensity, of course, some budgets were cut, and that's normal, but some budgets were reallocated to other more important things. And this transitioning efficiently to working from home was one of them. So we have to understand that there were some things that were lost, but the opportunities to meet people all over the world, to meet professionals all over the world, to see that they face similar challenges, to see that in Eastern Europe things are not that bad, are actually quite good, quite moving forward, moving much faster sometimes than in the Western societies. And we have to keep that in mind, because if you manage to create a vision in your organization and understand the local culture, you can change it much faster than a Dutch would in Netherlands. It's much easier to be a leader in Eastern Europe than to be a leader in Western Europe. You have much more challenges there. And then here you can take advantage of the culture in a good way. So by envisioning your people, by getting their engagement, by empowering them. And of course, it is something that can happen via Zoom as well, so remotely as well. But that's the downside of the coronavirus crisis, is that over the virtual platforms, trust is established harder. And then across cultures and virtually, trust is established even harder. So there are goods, positives and negatives, but yeah, we have to look at the positives and keep on until the crisis transforms the world in a different way, or we do that.
Okay, thank you very much, George. Razvan, let's hear your...
I fully agree that, as you said, George, there are positives and negatives. Right after March, when we entered the lockdown, we said, okay, let's migrate everything online. Everything should be live. Everything should be interactive. Let's map out the entire process as much as we can in this virtual environment. And we did it. And we've seen the opportunities right away because people were actually not spending any much time in finding parking places. They were giving us feedback that, okay, I can live with that because I've seen better now I can see better the screen share of the mentor. And I was having trouble within the classroom seeing at a long distance, stuff like that. But we soon realized that the same laws that we applied basically within the classroom are still applicable within the live environment. And I'm calling it live because we are just discovering a new model, basically. Because prior to this crisis, we mentioned online courses, but we actually meant the pre-recorded session, which we delivered as a standalone material to the students. Now we are interacting live, which is different. For example, if before we had 20 people within a group maximum, just to preserve quality and have that interaction and that feeling of, you know, I'm being taken care of by the mentor. Now we decided to go down to 15 students per classroom because, you know, you cannot have that distributive attention to everyone within an online environment. Also, I think that if we are to look at the Eastern European culture, here people are more, let's say, emotional, involved. They want to look at the mentor as a role model. They want to see his or her body language. They want to observe the tone of the voice. They want so many things more than the information itself that's getting transferred towards the student. And I would say that we kind of lost a part of that. And this is on the bad side, you know. I think that for the eastern part of the Europe, still the face-to-face works a little bit better. Maybe in the future, when the things will allow it, we are going to combine some of the live session with some meetings in the classroom. But I don't think that's the case for the Western Europe, where people tend to be more pragmatic. And even in the US, and I would ask Sebi to correct me, I think they are more, you know, give me the information, I understand, make sure that I understand, and this is it. Sebi, what do you say about that?
I would add here that from a commercial perspective, for sure, this lockdown brought us a global market. But at the same time, there is a huge disadvantage regarding the online teaching, because the school is a both-way communication process. And for sure, tutors or mentors need the feedback of their students. And this is very hard to collect, to get when teaching online. Mm-hmm. You don't see their bodies, you don't see when they are bothered, you don't see when they are trying to think on other topics. And this is a strange feeling that you are speaking to a wall. And in many situations, you lose the contact with the students. At the same time, I do agree with Sebastian. I think that we are moving from teaching to mentoring to guidance, and this should change. We can assist students or those who want to learn in finding information by themselves, and we can go from a class perspective to a personal perspective. And for one-to-ones or sessions with small groups, things can go very well, in my opinion. And this can be a strong, solid change, an important change from a class working formula to a small group working formula. This can be the next phase in education. And coming back to organizations, I do see that. These organizations, especially the big organizations with a very complicated structure, transform in a sum of silos. They lose contact from one department to another. This is one of the major problems of the organizations that they are not aware of at this moment, many of them. And the connections between teams are very limited, and the identity of the organization it's very close to be lost.
Okay, that's
and,
true.
For sure, there are no programs or strong initiatives at this moment in order to keep all these silos together.
I do that. I have that. That's one of my services.
I'm gonna let Sebastian.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, before moving to
let me muddy the waters all the way. And Doru, things are not that bad. They're actually much worse. So the future of education, gentlemen and ladies, is in artificial intelligence. So all the technology and all the investment, there's huge amounts of money being invested right now in me, Sebastian, Vaduva being replaced. That's the essence. And all the attempts are, how can I create the software, the algorithm, which takes all the information from all these professors and then feed it to the students and create a system. And again, the way I explain it, think of the diet or the exercise applications that people already have, on their smartphones. That's kind of like how education, I think, is going to evolve. Where me as a student, even whether I'm a young student in a university or an executive in a company, I will log into a new software and I'll say, look, I want to learn these skills and I have 6 months to learn them. And then the software is going to spit out a program for me with the appropriate professors, the appropriate mentors who are going to be top-notch. So there's going to be a picture of a professor from Harvard or an executive from Google who will be my virtual mentor. And it's going to help me, nudge me, do all those kind of things. And again, this is not CFE, this is not science fiction. This is stuff that is already happening. And I think that within 10 years' time, it's going to be even greater. Now, the question is, what are we live trainers and professors going to be doing that? I think there's going to be a niche for us.
Yeah, I'm sure we can continue this debate for 2 more hours at least. But I'm sorry, I saw your hand, but I need to move the conversation forward to my very last question for the session, and then we're going to open up the conversation to the public. Okay, just for them to ask 1 or 2 questions. We'll see how much time we have to answer. So for my final question this evening, I think we all realize again that Corona is going to pass at some point. And my question is, what is going to be left behind? Because certainly some transformations and some ways of doing things will stick to us. And I want to address these questions first for Georgia and put it in terms of culture. So how will the culture shift? The work culture, the organizational culture, or maybe our local cultures in terms of Western Europe, Eastern Europe will shift and will stay basically shifted, or it will be the new normal after this crisis?
Good, very good question. And what we need to understand from this crisis, it didn't do anything unnatural. It just speed up the things that were happening anyway. So this transition to the digital platforms, that was there, available to be used, available to be accessed with all of its advantages. So it was just that, okay, in February, we still meet live, we still spend resources on going to work. In March, no, not anymore. So we shouldn't look at it as a catastrophe. Of course, it is a pandemic and it affects people and it's a bad thing. But from the way our work, our lives evolved, it just speed up some of the things that were going in that direction anyway. From the organizational culture's point of view, it depends on the industry. It depends on what did you have before the crisis. Because whatever you had before the crisis, it only amplified. And then I am measuring organizational cultures, and I measure negative organizational cultures, and there can be different types of negative organizational cultures. Are there silo thinking? Is there politics? Is there bureaucracy? These are all different things. Some might all have them all together. So from that point on, whatever you had in real life just got amplified and got a new layer of complexity when you moved virtually. Now, when the transition, let's say when the crisis or the pandemic will stop, either with a vaccine or with something else, we estimate that a good number of companies will continue to work remotely because they can. They could before, just they didn't know that it's an option. There are companies that cannot do that, so they will move back to the ways they were working. There will be industries that will be disrupted. And that's also one of the opportunities that Sebastian was talking about. So yeah, if you're in the few ones that can focus now when everybody is, let's say, everywhere, not thinking, overwhelmed, if you can focus and disrupt your particular industry in which you are the expert, you're on a ticket to success. Okay, and then from the global culture point of view, or the, let's say, national culture point of view, again, a big shift will not happen because, let's say, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, there was this question whether the social media is creating one national culture, like it's unifying the cultures all over the world. And the answer is no. It's rather it, let's say, diverts people. And we can look at what's happening in the developed countries, how people inside get so diverted, so in groups. Like look at US, look at UK, even Sweden. And we should not expect that in the, I don't know, next 50, 100 years, we will have just one culture all over the world. And the simplest example is ask a Dutch and an American to debate the taxation. That's a cultural difference that will tell us that they will stay there. These are two developed societies in opposition. Both are good, but are in opposition. And we should expect that, yes, it will stay like that.
Thank you very much, Giorgio, for that perspective. If any of you gentlemen want to pitch in and fill in the blanks.
I would say that work is moving towards autonomy and self-responsibility. We have seen immediately after the pandemic started that a huge category of micromanagers has seen their job unuseful and already disappearing. And in organizations where people have a real purpose and have a good motivation, and organizations with a solid culture will perform even when people will work from home or from the beach or from wherever they want, because they are responsible and they are autonomous. They respond to the team demands, but they also can organize themselves as they wish. So this is the direction from my perspective.
Okay, thank you very much, Doru. Razvan, would you, or Sebastian?
30 seconds. I always encourage people, don't look at all the things that are being lost. Think of all the things that will be created. And I want to emphasize this. We don't know exactly what's going to be created. As we speak, people are creating, and that's what I'm encouraging everybody who's following us. Create new things. Certainly, a lot of things are going to be lost. Certainly, you know, the world is changing. I think that the focus should be on the new issues, the new ideas, the new habits, the new opportunities that we could create moving forward. I say that the year 2020 is like 1945, when a new world order is being established. look how great the world became after 1945 in contrast with what it was before 1945. So I really look forward to the next 30 or 40, 50 years as we're going to be creating and inventing and doing all kinds of wonderful things. So that's really where I'm focusing my energy and attention.
Okay.
There was this meme on the internet asking who drove the digitalization of your company, and it was the CEO, CTO, and COVID, and the only one was COVID, which was checked. And yes, indeed, it pushed us, and all the mechanisms were there before, and we were used to using them, and it just made this process being quicker. And now I imagine if someone comes tomorrow and says, okay, guys, get back the way you were. It's safe. There's no COVID anymore. And I realize it's impossible, because already if you are starting this process of adapting and changing your entire business model towards this, new tools and being more digital, it's kind of impossible to go back to things, to how things were. It would take some time, actually, finding some more classrooms. Parking is going to be a new problem again. All this stuff. So I would say
a new problem again.
Yeah, it sped up things, and I think
traffic.
I believe that post-pandemic, yes, we might reconsider having some classic interaction with the classrooms, with the students, but it's going to be combined. So we are talking here about introducing a good amount of blended learning, blended teaching, and stuff like this, and even the fact of allowing the student, to select the way he or she will want to participate to a certain session. I mean, you can go to the classroom if you want because it's there, or you can just connect online and interact with your colleagues in the same way, because the habits will be there.
Okay, thank you very much for all the exchange of ideas that we have here. I need to tell you something now. We have more people watching us now at the ending of the discussion than at the beginning. So that means the things that we're saying here are very, very interesting. Or maybe it means we also have two debates, one that is on the live session and one that is on the chat, which is also kind of interesting. I would like now so I finished basically my questions, and I would like to ask the people watching us live to use the chat and to address some of their questions, and we'll pick one or two to end this session, okay? So
yeah, we do have a question from Sorin, which is about students abandoning school because they start working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's.
I do have a perspective. Probably this is very tough, but please understand that that time is the major currency students have at that moment, and they need to spend it by getting the most value. And if they start working and they discover that in the organizations they learn more than in the university, and they learn and win money at the same time, it's very hard to fight with this. But I would say that universities should respond to this in a creative manner by adding in their offer for the last year's courses and trainings that are not performed or offered by companies. And this can be the best answer. At the same time, I do see that this new generation doesn't pay so much attention to paper and diplomas. They do legitimate themselves with what they know and with their experiences. And I would say that in the future, CVs won't look as we are used to at this moment. It will be a sum of experiences, a kind of story, a life story, not just a series of information. I have been in this school, following this training or this training. It will be pretty different. And we do see this in the most performing industries, in the IT, where companies hire for what do you know and for what are you good at, not based on the diploma you have already this is a reality.
That's true. Thank you.
And this is the most important challenge for the traditional system and for our informal system as well.
Would anyone else like to pick up the question from Sorin in the chat regarding employment and studies at the same time?
Well, I think Razvan gave an answer, and I also mentioned about that Branson, the way he explained it. But Sebastian?
I want to give a twist, and I totally understand that schooling is more boring, and oftentimes you learn less than you would in a company. However, I do want to go back to the character issue, and the character issue is this whole notion of finishing what you've started. Unfortunately, the education system that we have currently, it's the worst with the exception of all the other ones. In other words, you don't have a better alternative yet. So I emphasize the issue of the character, of sticking to itness, because what I do see is I see that student who gives up college after the first year or the second year because the professor's an idiot and he's stuck in the 1970s or what have you. Guess what? He goes works for this big company, and a year later he resigns because the manager's an idiot and he's stuck in the 1990s. And then he goes to the next company and he stays there for about 6 months, and then his colleague is an idiot and he has to give up. So without the person knowing, they develop certain habits of being anti-system, and they have it in their mind, well, if Bill Gates became a billionaire and didn't finish college, for sure the best way to become a billionaire is not to finish college. And I think that is a very, very flawed mentality, because the majority of college dropouts that I know are losers. They're bums. The big majority. So statistically speaking, when somebody drops out of college, they basically position themselves in a not a very favorable situation. Now, again, I am not saying, nor am I judging all the college dropouts. I have very good friends. I have wonderful people who never finished college, and they own their own companies, and they're doing extremely, extremely well. But those are the exception. They're not the norms. So what I say to that student who wants to drop out after the first semester is, make sure it's not a character issue. You're not running away from responsibility. You are not developing horrible habits that you hate everybody and you cannot get along with anybody. And that's why you're dropping out of college. If you're dropping out of college for good reasons, fine. Go pursue your dream. Build the next Microsoft. We need a Romanian Microsoft. But just because you want to be a bum and you hate your professor and you didn't like the rules of the secretary, that's no reason to quit college.
Yep.
And it depends on when you drop out and what you drop out, because it's not the same time when you drop out in the first year from Spiru Haret or Bioterra, which is 0, or if you drop out from Harvard in the 4th degree.
Right.
Okay, great. We do have one more question on chat, and I think that's going to take all the 6 minutes that we have left, from Miss Simona Motogna, to whom we say hi, and we're very glad to see her in chat. And she asked about the traditional education system in Romania, if it will come back to what it has been before, or this context has changed it for the better, not for worse.
Yeah, great question. If the system would be aware of itself, and by measuring the audience of every online course, the system would realize what is interesting for the students and what is bullshit. But I don't see the system being interested in measuring its own performance with the real KPIs. And I do believe that the system will have this tendency to come back to the before reality.
I agree with that.
It won't happen, but it will be a strong challenge to come back to the good old times.
In hierarchical societies, working in the public sector takes the longest time, because it's not a business. There is something that you can measure and say, yeah, it's better. So it has a big inertia, And unfortunately, even this crisis probably will not shift it a lot.
I have a more optimistic view, and obviously I'm very subjective here. And my role model for the education system is the healthcare system of Romania. And two things happened in the healthcare system of Romania over the last 20 years. Number one, you had private competition, which slowly started to put pressure on the doctors within the public system to improve. And it has happened. Nobody can tell me that the healthcare is the same today in Romania as it was 20 years ago. It's better. The second thing that happened, and this is a recent phenomenon, is that the government finally started paying more money to doctors to stop them from emigrating to Western Europe. And I think this is going to be the next phase that's going to happen with the education system in Romania. I think there's going to be a cleansing period. So I think the next 2 years, you're going to have a number of programs and maybe even universities who are going to shut down because they don't have the students. But I think that if you have these two factors, you have external private competition, and then you got higher salaries internally, I think things can happen. The third factor is you do need to have crusaders. And, you know, it's interesting that this is coming from Professor Simona, who I have the deepest respect. I think she's one of the reasons why UBB is in the good situation it is because she stuck it out. She didn't have to. I think she could have gone and worked at all kinds of companies making lots of money, not have to deal with the bureaucracy. But not only did she stay in the system, but she also assumed a bureaucratic responsibility, which is a second phase. And she's a bit of a role model for me because I'm doing the same thing. You know, I'm staying in the system, although I have alternatives, and I'm fighting with the bureaucracy, and I'm doing, you know, programe analitice și state de funcții and all the other stuff that is not necessarily valuable. And I think when you're going to have enough individuals doing that, the system is going to reform. That's my subjective opinion.
Okay, thank you very much, Sebastian, and thank you very much, Georgia and Doru.
I have a joke to end this meeting. I'm pretty sure that the only university that won't change at all will be Wallachia University, our national factory of fake PhDs for politicians and people in politics.
Doru, leave politics out of this education.
Successful university in Romania at this moment. Wallachia.
Yes. Yeah, we know it.
Okay. Thank you very much for all the opinions and the ideas that were shared here. I think they were very valuable. I want to thank you all for speakers and also audience for taking time out of your busy lives to have this conversation that is really important. Education will be, you know, and is one of the most important factors in our lives, and will shape the future of our companies and the future of, you know, our personal lives. So yeah, it's great to see you all, and thank you, you know, Cluj Innovation Days, for giving us this opportunity to talk from many different places, from Texas to Cluj to Timișoara, and, you know, all the other people from where they are from. We're great that we had this conversation. We wish you a great event now moving forward, because there is also sessions in the afternoon and sessions tomorrow, and hopefully we're going to see you in different sessions. Can't wait to get back to normal, or the old normal, and hopefully if we meet in the same town at one point, we can all grab a beer and continue some of the ideas that were started today. I think they were very valuable.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for moderating this, Vlad. You did a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
nice day, all of you.
Have a nice evening, everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Cluj Innovation Days 2020 is part of the Future Skills lifelong learning program. The project is co-financed from the European Social Fund through the Human Capital Operational Programme 2014-2020.